Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock practicing necromancer. And today, or I should say tonight, I kind of want to talk to you about reflection and goal aims. And I'm going to use this from a personalized perspective here. Okay. Last year, after a few months after my ex and I broke up, I spent a couple of months in complete solitary. I went into a very dark place in my life and came out stronger. So, when I dedicated myself to the path of necromancy full time, to the path of lichdom, kind of like the path of Kakashi, if you will, out of Slavic mythology, folklore. Even the Black Hen, the grimoire known as the Black Hen, speaks of items and tools that are used to help work with spirits and to separate your soul from the body to keep it safe so you live an immortal life. Many grimoires, such as the True Grimoire, the Black, the Grand Grimoire, Red Dragon speaks of this as well. It's called the Golden Hen. And so I dedicated myself last year and committed myself to to a total of 2 years, 3 months of a spiritual journey. Now I can't believe it's already been a year and we're on the 13th month of that spiritual journey. Now, my patroness, I've dedicated myself to last year working with vile and baneful, wrathful magics, not just benefiting that aspect through practice and study, but also the creation of things like the Dibbit box, Griscris bags within the old school method, working with bones, working with coins, working with the actual cloth with twine, and really putting those things together. And it actually felt good to get back to basics. It felt good to get back into the old school way of things, not this modern day BS, crap that they call uh, workings today. And like I said, it really felt good to do that. And it benefited my clients as well. Last year, I had like 5 or 6 clients, seven maybe, last year. And so it kind of goes to show you, if you're getting more than that in 1 year, you're probably making that shit up. Okay. But no, with me, I have a friend that hooks me up with clientele every so often, and this particular year started off slow. It was more of the fact, it was more about study, it's more about practice, it was about meditation, getting into a routine, things like working out, lifting weights, which, to be fair, I really got to start doing again. The last couple of months have been kind of hectic, but it was kind of interesting to see how that went from applying a lifestyle of fasting, cutting out certain things, food wise, from my life, starting to, uh, get into a workout regimen, getting into a lifestyle fitting of a necromancer, you know. And I do apologize. My nose is itching at the moment because of my beard. It needs to be trimmed again. So I'm kind of rubbing my nose here, and I do apologize. You know, it's right in here, just rubbing. It's like, eh. But anyways, it was kind of cool to see how it went into getting all these clientele this past year. I wasn't looking to do that. It just kind of fell into play. And it really fit in nicely because when you're working with vile magics and you're getting into that life of spirituality where it's no longer about experimentation, dabbling, or whatever. You're really getting back into the physical lifestyle. You're making it a lifestyle. And this, after having a family for 6 years, and then going through the betrayals, the lies, the manipulations, all of that BS, it was good to get back into this practice. Um, Even after I became an archbishop, I started delving into spirituality, specifically that of spiritual warfare. I started getting into possessions. I started getting into demonolatry more on a serious level, both in invocations, evocations, and spiritual workings. Started dedicating myself as their apprentice, you know, showing that humbleism, the fact that that hunger and that thirst for that wisdom and that knowledge, rededicating myself to the path and the commitment that I was in. Seeing how all of this came into play last year. Now we're in 2024. What's next? What am I going to do for the next year and 3 months? Do I want to take it further than that year, that 2 years and 3 months? The answer is yeah, I do at this point, because number one, this is my life. This is what I'm about. I'm about that knowledge. I'm seeking it out on all levels. I'm making it a part of my daily routines. I'm keeping journals, I'm keeping notes, I'm keeping a grimoire of everything that I'm doing. Even those that I guess you can say I'm an apprentice of are giving me exercises, giving me homework, and I'm doing that as well. Literally, it's not just showing that you're putting the time and the effort in, it's showing that you're putting the work in. The spirits love this. They love seeing a dedicated, committed apprentice, not just a practitioner. That's how they know what I'm sharing with them is worthwhile. Okay? When a spirit sees you doing this, it is like a teacher to a student. When you get that one student who's not just committed and dedicated, but literally applying that gnosis, that apotheosis to their life in their practice, everyday practice, it makes it worthwhile. Okay, this is why they work with with this type of practitioner. Most practitioners come in and it's just like, oh, show and tell. Look at me, ego, pride. But when you humble yourself and you get into these practices and you start applying it for an entire year, people take notice. It's not just the people, it's the spirits that you work with. And they realize, wow, you're not just learning yourself, but you're a role model for me. You are a role model for me. Okay? It is that humbleism, but it's also that mutual respect. The demons to the practitioner or the master to the apprentice, the teacher to the student. It does not matter if you are a part of the ministry, it does not matter if you're considered an elder in the community. You are a student nonetheless. To be a good leader, you must also be a good follower. Okay? You got to put the work in. And seeing what I've done over the last year, I was talking with my apprentice, and I had put something on a local group chat that I'm in, and this is just for my area alone, and it's called the neighborhood. It's something I can't remember the full name of it, but it's called the local neighbor. And I also rewrote this on my Facebook, business page, which is Bruo Angeles, and you can look that page up for yourself. I also put it on my main profile page as well, because I think it's really something that you have to reflect on. Because when you think about many religions, like let's take for an example that of the Bible, the New Testament. It says, and I'm just going to freeload it here. It says, for those who hear, incline your ear. You see without seeing, you hear without hearing. Okay? For those who have eyes to see, see. When you have ears to hear, listen. Okay? Much of the world is not paying attention to the earth. The earth is literally telling you something and you're not listening. And this really, after writing this, after being in deep meditation for several hours, reading back through it, it really hit me hard. And this is why. I spent years trying to do things without any success. It was like hitting a wall after wall after wall, and nothing was going my way. And then all of a sudden, a friend of mine comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm going to do this for you." You know, I'm no longer friends with this guy, but today, but he went his own way, and that was his choice to do. But it was kind of interesting to kind of reflect on because this is like 6, 7 years ago, and my life really turned around that time because of the fact that as a minister, I found out that I was like a, how should I say this, a ghost in my area. People had seen my business cards, but they thought I was a fucking ghost. They thought I was this myth. Like a lot of these gods and all these old school practitioners that you just don't see anymore. You know, and like the Illuminati, if you will, but not that extreme. But it was kind of cool to see because of the fact that they saw me as an elder, especially in the pagan and Wiccan communities. They see me as an elder, not just as a practicing Satanist at the time, but then I got away from Satanism and I wanted to grow, so I got into necromancy. And around that time, some turmoil came up, and then my son was born, and got into a relationship, for 5, 6, just under 7 years, and that ended badly, I might add. So, anyways, getting into last year was perhaps one of the best things that I ever did. And this is why. I look back at it today and I look at the world. I don't associate with the world. I don't react to the world like I used to. I look at it as though I'm a foreigner in a different land. You know what I'm saying? You probably don't understand that what I mean by that, but it's okay. It's like being in a different body, looking through your own eyes, but yet you're not the one behind those eyes. And you're like a third person watching events unfold. So I look back and over the last 20, 30 years, and you're seeing the earth and you're seeing nature telling humanity, hey, pay attention. And humanity's just going forth blindly. You know, you don't see the animals fucking each other over. You don't see um, them going to war. They have an issue. They have their own very, how should I say, the simplistic way of finding a mate. So you don't have to worry about pans, trans, bis, tries, or whatever the fuck people try to identify themselves with today. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't have an issue with these people. I really don't. It's the way I put it is we live in a time of identification. You have to have an identity and you have to feel like you belong in something. Well, guess what? That's societal rules. That's the way they set up the design, the matrix, to where you have to identify yourself with one of these groups. Okay. And when you look at how the world is set up, it's set up for segregation. It's set up for subdivisions. It's set up for various different classes. Okay. And the world literally is a classroom, if you think about it. But most people are not learning to be able to grow or to mature within their own practices. It doesn't matter if you're at work, it doesn't matter if you're a witch or a warlock. It doesn't matter if you're homeless or you're trying to make a home with someone, you know? It just doesn't matter, you know? So here I am meditating on this very how should I say this, perspective, okay? So here it is. Last year I focused solely on vile and baneful magics. I'm talking wrathful sorcery. Working with my patron and my patroness and a few others that associate in that very how should I say attributes of demonolatry and spirituality, spiritual warfare. Even I mean, if you look at Alistair for an example, and Alistair is actually one of the three main princes, if you will. And the clavicle of Solomon, you see Satan, you see Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth in one section, but yet in another section, Alistair replaces Astaroth. Okay. Now, when you do a Google search on Alistair, it will tell you that he is known as the executioner. Now, what's interesting though is if you look at, say, Samuel, for an example, he's known as the venom of God, and he was the original serpent. Okay, so you would use these two entities, one to execute a spell, whereas the other one you want to poison the well, if you will, of the life force of your victim or your target. But how do you even do this if you don't know how to forge the tools necessary or the skills necessary to perform these type of sorceries? Well, in that case, you would turn to Azazel. Okay, Azazel is known as the forger of weaponry. Okay, he is the one that trained women how to paint their faces. Okay, within makeup wise. Okay, but if you look at the world's mythology, even the Grigori use bones, human and animal bones crushed up, and you make it into a powder to rub on your face. Okay, so as a necromancer, one of the goals that I had last year was to delve into and further black magic within vile magics. I'm talking vengeance. I'm talking destruction. And trust me, I've got nothing but respect for this magic. But more so, when you look at the beings that are teaching you this, you're left in awe. Okay, because it's like, okay, I knew about a Dybbuk box. I knew it dealt with spirits that were baneful to humanity, but I had no idea that you can actually lock the soul of a victim or a target, such as another human being, in there, link them to that box, put in all these seals and all these wardings to keep them in there and isolate them completely into damnation. That was cool to learn. More so, learning how to make a cloth and taking a cloth like, say, a black cloth or a green cloth for money magic or that of prosperity or wealth. Even if let's say, for an example, you have a client that's going through a court battle, and you have somebody that's just not paying their due. Okay, how do you get that person to evict that person from the place of residence, but also get your client the money that they are owed? If you don't know how to create a bag, an old school bag, and literally curse that individual into submission, literally, not just submission, but damnation. Okay, number one, you've cursed them into suffering, a lifestyle of a slow strangulation of death, overpowering them and overwhelming them with the death essence. And what's interesting is in that alone, you have, say, for example, a photo, a name, address. Let's say, for an example, you get your hands on their license, their registration, their place of residence, their exact location. You can literally just take this. You write, the seal. You draw the symbol that you want on it. You put the symbols on it. Okay, let's say, for example, the inverted pentagram or the inverted cross. Just out of an example, I'm just throwing those out there. You don't have to go with those symbols if you don't want to. Um, in the old days, it would just simply be items of death and linking that personalized item to that occult item. Okay, such as a voodoo doll. A voodoo doll was something where you can link, say, for example, a wedding ring and incorporate that into the voodoo doll, and you have power over that individual. Now, in a gris bag, that was something completely different because number one, you've got metals. You can put rusty nails in there. You can put coins in there, rare coins and metals in there. You can put human bones or animal bones in there. You can do a lot of different things and place those in that little square, and you bring it the corners up and you wrap it up and you tie it, you wrap twine around it and you tie it off, and you've got yourself a hex bag. Okay. Now, this particular bag has different names depending on the religion that you're in, okay, or the philosophy that you follow, such as a mojo bag, a gris bag, a hex bag, okay. And a lot of people really shy away from that. But you know what? It was cool to learn. And that was just last year. So here we are in 2024. And the goals that I have now is, now that I've delved into the art of necromancy full throttle, okay, I'm not a dabbler. I'm not a how should I say this? I'm not a dabbler. I'm not just a neophyte or an amateur or an adept in it anymore. I'm literally dedicated to making this path my own and making it a lifestyle to for the rest of my life. This is the path that I've chosen. Okay. It's a path that I've really related to and enjoy fully. And what's interesting here is now I'm looking at the elder gods. I'm looking at those who rule the roost, if you will. And I want to really get to know them. I want to start applying them into my sorcery and my spiritual communions. I want to start dedicating my life to them and working with them, like Cthulhu out of the Necronomicon. The last couple of months, I have worked with Cthulhu. I've called him forth and made a blood pact with him. I've called Nana, Shemesh, um, Nebo, and Ishtar. You know, not just Isis and some of these old gods that have been around for thousands of years. Well, guess what? Now I've called these ones forth, and I felt like starting with them for a reason. And I stopped with Shemesh. Why? Before I got into the next two, which happened to be Marduk, happens to be one of them, I wanted to get into the nocturnal aspects, not just working with the sun. Okay. I wanted to work with the sun. I wanted to work with the moon. I wanted to work with the iron and the metals and the elements. Well, guess what? Now I'm working with the elements. I'm going deep into the study and the practice of the five elements. And what I found so far is really inspiring. Okay. And this is why. When we think about your overall health, okay, as a practitioner, your physical health, your mental health, and your emotional health ties into a lot of things. So why not your physical health? Let's look at herbalism. Okay, When you get into, say, for an example, the elements of fire, that's passion, desire. Okay, that's rage. It's emotion. It's raw emotional attributes. So when you hate somebody, you're really putting that anger and that desire to inflict pain and suffering upon that person through a spell, through a ritual. Okay, which is, let's face it, more healthy than to actually keep it to yourself or to go out and actually physically harm them. You're doing this from afar. You're doing it with a photo. If you look at movies, for an example, one of the things you constantly see in a movie is somebody throwing a knife or a dart at somebody's face, on a wall. So I mean, if you take that symbolism and you use that in magic, you're this is called um, an effigy. Okay, you've got the effigy, which is their face. It's got their essence. More so, it's empathetic magic because you're linking that person to a spell. You're linking them to an actual object. Okay, so like I said, a Griscos bag, a hex bag, or a Dibbit box. Okay, even if you put them in a coffin, it does the exact same thing. It symbolizes death. You're putting everything there. So, in this essence, when you look at this, you're dealing with the middle and lower abdominal, stomach region. And when you're following the five elements in a pentagram shape, it's covering literally everything in your stomach, from your lower and your small and large intestines to your gallbladder and liver to your stomach to your kidneys. And when you get into herbalism, you're getting into the various different herbs and fruits and vegetables that allow you to operate proficiency level of 100%, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see. And like I said in past videos, if you get into lemons, it prevents gallbladder and kidney stones. It's a blood purifier. If you get into turmeric, it helps in garlic, onions even. It's keeping your cholesterol down. Okay. If you get into berries, it helps with various different organs, including your eyes, your eyesight. So you're learning about the elements and how they apply to your overall health, especially if you get into, say, meridians or chakras, your kundalini even. You're seeing how certain elements apply to all of this. So one of the goals I have this year is not just to get further into lichdom, but to get into herbalism and start putting together these remedies myself. I want to get into an actual working where you're creating homemade remedies for health, much like the old hexes used to do. The Strega, the gypsies, the nomads. These people were renowned for being healers, not just people who would curse you, in the old world, you know? So I want to bring this knowledge back. I want to bring it into my life and I want it to be able to help my clients better their lives. And it has nothing to do with greed. It has nothing to do with personal profit. It has nothing to do with any of that. It's all about the sorcery. It's all about the knowledge and the learning process. More so, it's about personal growth for me. Okay. So getting into this stuff and furthering that is something that's cool. Okay. So number one, I look forward to working with these rulers, these elder gods, if you will. I want to continue to apply the creeds that I've dedicated myself to my life because I've looked at last year. Number one, I'm now a shift leader. I've got the position that I wanted. Okay. I'm not just an opener and a primary baker, but I'm basically the one that opens and runs the stores until upper management gets there, which is awesome. Okay. All knowledge goes through this position and I like it. So now I've reached that goal through sorcery. I've gotten rid of everybody that has stood in my way due to sorcery. I've helped my clients achieve their goals and they're happy. I mean, sure, there's been a couple of glitches, but I think that's just because number one, the target has either been resistant to the spells and or the universe is saying, hey, you know, no more on that person. Because one thing I've learned about spell work is not everything is 100% foolproof. You know, it's not a permanent thing in some cases. You know, so I think that this year alone, I'm going to get more isolated. I think I'm going to isolate myself more and more. And I think that this year I'm going to be spending a lot more time in my ritual room when I'm not at work. I'm going to be hitting my library more often. And I'm going to be going down to the public library more often. And I'm going to be hitting the weights more often too. And I think I'm going to be doing calisthenics, if you will, instead of actual weightlifting. I mean, I've tried doing actual weightlifting and I've gotten nowhere in the past until I talked to a coworker's boyfriend who literally gave me a piece of advice, and it was like, wow, that actually made sense to me. And for some reason, when I started following that advice, the pain in my shoulders went away, the pain in my knees went away, my hand is all good. Okay. So, and those were from past injuries that I've had to deal with over the last 10 years. So, I mean, I look at all these advancements, all these, how should I say this, positive aspects in sorcery over the last decade since coming to Maine, since moving to Maine from Texas and Tucson. And working with the death essence really has helped my career, my world. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be applying myself to these practices even more this year. And I hope to bring forth more knowledge to help guide you as the beginners, even if you're adepts or even advanced practitioners, because there's always room for you to grow. There's always something new for you to learn and to adapt to, even to study. I mean, like, you know, I used, how should I say this? I used an analogy once on an onion. When you think you've learned everything, peel that layer, peel that layer, that top layer off, and you have a whole new layer to learn. And if you think about a lifetime of study and practice, self mastery, growth, maturity within the arts, is life not like an onion? I mean, honestly, look at it as that example, because there are different quarters to your life, different interests that you get into, and when you get to that level, it's like, hmm, I want to delve deeper. Well, guess what? That's what I'm doing. So here I am, second year of that spiritual journey. It's the 10th day of January 2024. I spent 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours in my temple today alone, just meditating, communing. And one thing is for sure, I want to listen, I want to hear, I want to see, I want to go further, I want to evolve even further in the arts and the practices. And I'm looking forward to getting back even further into Palo Mayumbi, into Brujeria, into Santeria, Haitian Voodoo, necromantic practices. I'm looking forward to getting back into these practices of lichdom even further. And you know what? I can only imagine this time next year when I go to do reflection again, How far have I grown? Where has the magic taken me? What have I learned? What do I what have I taken out of that year? What has transpired in that year? I look at how these spirits have helped my mother through her heart attack, triple bypass, brought her back within less than a fraction of the time that it would take a normal person. To see how my job in a fast food restaurant has elevated me, gotten rid of most obstacles, about 98 to 99% obstacles gone, at least for the time being, anyways. I have no doubts in my mind that over the next year, the only way is up. But I also have no doubts in my mind that there will be trials. There will be tests. And when those come, it is how you face them and how you observe them and what transpires during those tests and those trials that make you who you are. Because for growth and true growth to literally take place, you have to be tried, you have to be tested. And that's a good thing. Keep those horns up, ladies and gentlemen. Never stop learning, never stop growing. Always back up what you preach and always make yourself available to the public. For you are responsible for the things you do and say. Plain and simple. The only thing I can take credit for is my own work, my own studies, my own research, my own practices. Anything outside of that is just references to learn from, things that would be considered examples. Like the fur ball right over here in that basket where she knows she's not supposed to be. Because each time she gets up there, gets roughhousing with her sister, that ends up on the floor along with the kitties. Uh, but what are you going to do? Live and learn, right? And I find it interesting that every test that's come my way has been a good thing. Every trial has been a good thing. So, yeah, keep it up. I got 4 hours before I got to get up for work. Oh, yeah. And when I get out of work, I'm going to be hitting those books yet again. In fact, I'm actually writing a grimoire right now, specifically on herbs and poisons. So looking forward to doing that and completing it. I want to write an essay on that as well and the effects. And I think I'll do a video on it once it's done. Until next time, I want to thank everybody that has come in and watched this while it was going on. I want to thank all my returning loyal fans. I want to thank those who look at me as an elder and a teacher. I'm glad I'm able to guide you along your path, even educate you, kind of make your lives and your journey a little bit more easier, and kind of give you ideas of, hey, okay, this is where I can look for this stuff. This is what can be done. This is stuff that I not recommended that we do, but things that anything outside of that is up to you as an individual. And it's basically that whole clause thing about we're not responsible for the things you do with the knowledge, you know. But I'm not that kind of guy because I really don't give a shit about the world. I really don't. Everybody wants to cover their own ass these days, and guess what? It's easier than actually doing the right thing. Because let me give you a little example here. If you go to your dictionary and you look up the term righteous, what does it mean to be righteous? To live a righteous life, to do the right thing, the righteous anger, the righteous path to maturity. That's what it means. I actually looked that up earlier. Before I did this video, before I posted this to both my business page and my personal account on Facebook, before doing this video, I've always tried to do the right thing. And I live my life by my own creed. The nine noble virtues and the path that I walk, not just the creeds of being a Satanist. I still hold true to those creeds even today because they make you who you are. I strongly believe a man is not a man unless he lives by a strict code of honor. If you do not know yourself, you cannot know your enemy. If you do not know your enemy, you do not know yourself. This is Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Even Nietzsche said that you have to know yourself to be able to become a teacher, a guide, an elder. Look at his book, Good and Evil. Okay, you want to know about the art of subterfuge and politics? Get into the Russian classic known as War and Peace. Look at Marcus Aurelius' book of meditation. Incredible. Get into Shintoism. Get into the practices of Bushido, and you learn about kindred. You learn about clan, and you know being part of a clan. You learn about a brotherhood, matter of honor, integrity. You don't fear death; you embrace it. That's why the world doesn't know how to handle people like me because we're not afraid to die. We don't die unless we want to die. We share our knowledge freely and willingly. We purposely seek out that knowledge to better ourselves, and we stand against the normalities of culture and civilization because it's about doing the right thing. Hence, why it's always good to reflect on yourself once in a while. Look back at the future. Not just the future of where you want to be, but also the past, because that past is what makes you who you are today. So if you're looking at yourself today and you're looking into the past, I look at what I've done over the last year. I got a dog. Well, technically, my ex got the dog. I just take care of the dog while she's at work. But I forged a relationship with this pup. She gets very excited when she sees me because she knows she's not going to be cooped up in a house or in a kennel. She's going to be out in the wild, on the trails, at the dog park. She's going to be active. She gets attention. She gets played with, loved on, if you will. She gets spoiled rotten. She goes for car rides. And as you can see by this little kitten behind me, she's one of 4 that literally are spoiled rotten as well. I have more of a connection to them than I do people. I understand the animal kingdom better because it's more simplistic. Humanity makes things so complicated, more complicated than they have to be. You take personalized responsibility for your actions, for your things you do and say. If you're hired to do a job. Do the fucking job that you're hired to do. Don't try to go beyond it. Don't try to make excuses for not doing that work. If I have a client that comes to me for love magic, I'm going to tell a client point blank, I don't do that. I mean, I have the basic knowledge of how to do it, but it is not my speciality. That would be like going to that would be like going to, let's say, for example, Pope Benedict. Okay, Pope Benedict, and going, hey, can you tell me how to get in touch with demons? How do I know what demon is I'm dealing with? What's he gonna do? He's not a demonator. He's not into demonology. He works for the celestial realms, that of tetragrammation, that of God and what is holy. He works for a church. He has nothing to do with demons. He's got armed bodyguards. He's got his own city to run. You want to know about demons, you go to a demonator. You go to somebody who actually specializes in demonolatry. These corporations today, they only want to cover their own asses, just like people. Excuses, excuses, excuses. And that's why when I tell people I am a contractor, you're hiring me for my service, and I will fulfill that service. I keep telling my son's mother, don't try, you may have all these degrees, you may have all these fancy degrees like being a licensed phlebotomist, being an HBP, being a CNA, being a medical coder, having a degree in medical billing and coding. It means shit on the job when you are hired as a CNA. You don't go in and you don't do MA work, you don't do RA work, you don't do management's job. You do your job in what you are hired to do. This is why she keeps getting her ass in trouble. You look at me. I don't give a shit about the world, and I keep telling people this. My son's grandfather is constantly, telling me about what's the latest thing is on the news. It's like, I don't care. I don't care. As a practitioner, I am separated from the world. I don't have anything, I have no relations to the world. I have no interest in the world. There's nothing in this world that interests me. I don't give a flying fuck if Putin is invading Ukraine or China is aligning themselves with North Korea and, say, Russia. Just because I'm aware of this shit doesn't mean I care about it. It has nothing to do with me. I am a keeper of the knowledge. I am the keeper of the knowledge, the sacred knowledge. This is what witches and warlocks were in the past tense. This is why so many of the old cultures would go to a practitioner for healing, for spiritual advice, for hunting and blessings. This is what a practitioner of the arts was. They had all these different hats, as Terry Hatcher would put it. You have all these hats, from being a counselor to being a minister, to being a spiritualist, to being a practitioner of the arts. Today's practitioners, it's more about show and tell. I am not a part of these fads. Don't assume that I am. I don't care about them. You want to be a part of a fad, you want popularity, you want to get rich quick, there's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass because you're not a practitioner. You want to be a practitioner, You got to separate from the world. Look at the Agori out of India. Look at the extreme levels that they go to. Look at the Dukan out of Indonesia. Look at the medicine men in Native American traditions. You go back through history and you, like I said, you have the shaman, the necromancer, the Eshi, the Yaji, the Hexa, the Strega, even the Strigoi, the vampire. Always solitary. Solitary in nature. Completely separated. Their huts were either by the tribal chief, if you're into African traditions, or they're just outside the village, on the edge of the village in European culture, to being way out in the fucking boondocks. They're separate from society for a reason. For a reason. The world fears us because of this knowledge. We're guiding you to actual truth, showing you what is possible, what can be done. You go to a doctor's office today, they tell you, you got cancer. Okay, cool. How do I get rid of it? What stage is it at? Well, you're going to die in 6 months to a year. That's all they care about, money. They don't give a shit about you. If you don't get your cholesterol down, you're probably going to have a stroke or a heart attack. People have forgotten all these natural herbs that can help you. Somebody like me is a threat to this culture, because it's not about this. It's not about money. It's about the knowledge. That's why when I don't reveal certain things, it means you're not ready for it yet. More so, it's to protect that knowledge, to keep it from being corrupted. It's got nothing to do with pride or ego. It's not about power. It's about knowledge. It's about apotheosis. It's about keeping it from those that would use it for corruption. Leo Blanford, welcome to the channel, my friend. Well, I'm glad you enjoy what I've been putting forth. Glad it's helped you. Keep doing it. You'll find sources that are connected to it. Things that I don't even speak on that will lead you to better understanding. So if I give you, for an example, let's say, for an example, I give you, let's say Scott Cunningham's book, The Book of Shadows. Okay. Now you go through this book and you learn certain remedies. Let's say, for an example, one of the biggest things today that doctors assign medication for is anxiety. Okay. Now, they give you synthetic drugs, things that are grown in a fucking petri dish and put into a powder, which is then formed into a capsule. Okay. You have no idea what's in this drug. Number one. Number two, they sit there and tell you, oh, by the way, this particular drug will have certain adverse reactions, could be damaging to your liver, like alcohol. Okay. Let's say, for example, chocolate. will clog your kidneys because it's sugar based. And if you don't drink enough water, you get clogged. Your kidneys start dying off. Okay. Okay. So, like I said, you don't know what about these drugs. You don't know what they're prescribing you. They know you're prescribing you for certain things. They say, "Oh, you have high cholesterol, or you have a heart disease of some sort." Well, what if I told you that there are foods and there are natural herbs that will do the same damn thing at a fraction of the cost? Okay. And it's things that you can actually grow yourself. Hell, you can go into a freaking shopping center, go into the herb aisle, and pick a lot of this stuff up. You can go into the fruits and vegetable aisle, get bananas, you can get berries, you can get apples. I mean, let's take apples just for an example. Okay, you know how you get plaque. Let's say for an example, gout. Okay, the older you get gout. Okay, that's one of the main things you get on your joints. This is what causes joint pain. Okay, and it mimics, and I'm going to say this again, it mimics ingrown toenail. Okay, now we've all had that. It's quite painful, right? Well, here it is. Gout is similar. It has similar side effects. It has the redness, the swelling of the joint, the extreme pain. And what this is it is plaque that builds up on your joints. Okay. And you could actually Google this yourself. Now, they'll prescribe a certain medication to help lower your creatine levels. Okay. Your creatine level is what is considered a killer because it creates that plaque. It creates that buildup of residue. Now, what if I told you that you can go to your local grocery and pick up apples? Apples. Grapes, even. Okay. Now, what if I told you that the apple juice in general, just a glass of apple juice a day, much like you would with orange juice, would lower that gout, hmm. would eliminate gout, even. Ooh, interesting. Hmm. One of the biggest things today is cancer. What if I told you that garlic cloves, eating garlic cloves daily, keep wards off most cancers? What if I told you that lemon juice prevents gallbladder and kidney stones? And it's a blood purifier. Hmm. What if I told you that garlic and turmeric would lower your cholesterol? What if I told you that drinking catnip tea on a daily basis is a natural tranquilizer? It does the exact same thing that a medication would for anxiety. And that's just herbalism. Imagine what you could do and how much you can save if you actually left the doctor behind and started doing your own research into what we've used for hundreds of thousands of years for food. Hmm. Ironic, isn't it? How far culture has gone from the natural order, from actual knowledge. And now certain states here in the United States have actually signed in to a law that if a parent has a hair across their ass about a fucking book, they have to remove that book from a school. Mhm. Now we're going into the Third Reich, where, or in this case, the Fourth Reich, where they're going to have another mass cleansing, this time of books, much like they used to do with witch hunting. They would take all these books and burn them. Hmm. Interesting how that works, right? It's ironic We have all this knowledge at our fingertips, and yet culture is becoming more and more pathetically stupid. And you wonder why true practitioners hold true to the creed of keeping that knowledge pure. We won't share it with those unworthy. That's why I said, I give you just enough that it gives you that hunger and thirst to go out and do the research and the studying yourself. Okay? You want to learn about Lucifer's Raphael and pact making. Go to these grimoires. The Grand Grimoire Red Dragon. The Red Dragon was actually better than the original because it went into more detail within the ritual itself. You want to learn about magical squares. Go into the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. You want to learn about herbs and working with spirits. Go into the Munich manuscripts. So much knowledge out there. But it's just enough that it gives you that hunger, that thirst, leaving you want more, leaving you wanting more. I give you the knowledge, but just a small taste. It's up to you to go out there and do the work, put the time in. And those truly hungering and thirsting for that knowledge will heed the words, and it will resonate with them. And they will go out and do the work. They will put the time in, and they will benefit. My apprentice and my friend, my business partner, he's now been unemployed for, what's it been now, about 3-4 years, I think. About 3 years. He just got back to work after 3 years. And you know what? He looked at me and he says, it's like looking through somebody else's eyes. I don't recognize this world. I'm surrounded by all these people and I don't resonate with them. I don't even recognize them. They don't know. And it's true, because once you've left the world, it's like you've left the matrix. You know, you've left the matrix, and now it's like you're looking at this world and it's like it's foreign. It's literally foreign to you. You're not a part of the subsystem. You're not a part of the segregation. You're not a part of that slavehood of the tetragrammaton, the dross. You're now an individual, and you have to stand on your own feet. You have to actually apply the knowledge to your life. You're responsible for your own way of life now. You rise or fall at your own whims. And you know what? I love it. I like it this way. Because this way, it's up to me to do the work. It's a reminder. It is needed. So when I reflect on things every so often, maybe every 3 months, half a year, to once a year even, at the most, or I should say at the least once a year. The Golden Dawn, the Celtic Golden Dawn has a system where you do the work for an entire year. And then you take that one day to reflect. You reflect over what you've done, what you practice, what you research. And then you think, is this the path I want? Is this the path that fits me? Is this the path that I want to walk, that I want to dedicate myself to? Is this the lifestyle that I really want? And you know what? Best thing I ever did was become a necromancer. The best thing I ever did was dedicate myself to this path. The best thing I ever did was go on to the spiritual journey. The best thing I've ever done is dedicate myself to the spirits that I work with. Yes, I'm an archbishop, legally ordained as a multi-faith archbishop. Yes, I'm an I'm a protector of the wisdom, but I chose the path of taking that sheath from the reaper and removing myself from the natural order of things. I've taken my own life in my own hands, and I'm better off for it, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. Question is, can you do the same? Can you do the same? Do you want to do the same? Do you want to become that individual, or do you want to continue serving on your knees like a slave? That's on you. That's the only person that can answer that is you. The last year, my world has skyrocketed. Better position at work. I have more money than I can deal with. You know, I'm not rich or anything. No, I have enough to live comfortably. And you know what? It keeps me humble because that's the way I'd rather have it. But at the same time, I'm free to come and go as I see fit. I know my rights through the Constitution, and trust me, I've actually started teaching that. And my last video was actually on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, the First Amendment, and the 14th Amendment. So, kind of cool, huh? Even the Second Amendment. So I should say First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendment. 13th, if you actually count the women's right to bear children or not, as well, because I've also done a video on that as well. So yeah, like I said, it is up to you on the path that you follow. Do you want to be part of the dross and live by societal norms? Or do you want to become that lone fish and go upstream? I know it's kind of a fishy situation, no pun intended. It may be unnatural and uncomfortable at first, but eventually you're going to sit there and go, yep, I am so much better off not knowing these people. I'm not so much, I used to be a part of this. And now I'm sitting here wondering, why did I waste all those years doing this? Hmm. And that's the moment when you realize you're no longer an acolyte. You're no longer just dabbling. You've made this a lifestyle. It's your career. It is your life. Now live it. Go out there and live it. Continue gaining that knowledge, that apotheosis. Continue growing and maturing. Your godhood is literally in your hands. Don't get me wrong, you will have enemies and you will be attacked, but most importantly, you will have the power and the knowledge behind you to defend yourself. You'll know what to do, when to do it, and how to go about doing it because you've earned that knowledge. You've earned your stature in life. You want to know what I've learned in the last year? Confidence in self. I know myself. I know what I'm capable of. And I'm okay with that. I know where I want to go and what I want to do and what I want to be. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being a solitary practitioner. I'm okay with living alone. I like being alone. I like being solitary. And I'm okay with it. But it comes down to you, not me. Only you can decide for yourself who and what you want to be. That's a good thing, Leo. The more you get into your rites and your rituals, your knowledge, you're going to be defining and redefining your works. Hell, even your own altar room, your inner temple will change over time. I can't tell you how many times in the last year I've rededicated my altar over the last 6 years. And even my own teacher has looked at me and said, "It has amazed me on how you've defined and redefined, repackaged your temple to become more potent. Not just your level of dedication to your knowledge and research, not just your practices." So trust me when I tell you that the more you do that, Leo, the more beneficial and fruitfulness you'll have in your life. Exactly, Leo. Well, I'm glad you resonate with me. I really do. That's a very good question, Leo. That's a very good question. Can one, when working with spirits, can I have multiple patrons and patronesses? The answer is yes. You don't want to go over abundance on them. I would recommend probably anywhere from 4 to say 8. Okay, 12 max. You can go for a full dozen if you want it. But just keep in mind that no matter what system you're in, you want to keep that knowledge pure. You want to keep it purely honorable, okay, respectful. If you're working with, say, let's go with the Goetic, spirits, the Lesser Key of Solomon, the 72 Goetic spirits, okay. Let's say, for an example, you resonate with, say, I'm just going to throw a number out here. Let's say 8 male and female spirits. I would work with 4 male, 4 female. I would keep that balance, okay. But I would also, when working with them, I would work solely within their system. I would not want to, say, for an example, go with work with demons, and then all of a sudden go into Hinduism or Buddhism and work with, let's say, well, I wouldn't go, you know what? I wouldn't go into Hinduism and work with the Devi, or go into Islamic traditions and work with the jinn. Okay, I would not want to. I would not want to corrupt that knowledge and mix them together, if that makes sense to you, because of the fact that it waters everything down. You end up getting things confused, and next thing you know, you're left with nothing. Okay, because the jinn aren't going to tolerate it, the demons aren't going to tolerate it, and most importantly, the question is, can you tolerate it? Because if you can tolerate it, they can't. Okay, because working with demons and their circles, say for example, the let's go with the greater let's go with the keys of Solomon for an example, just out of an example here. Working with the seals put forth in the keys of Solomon, you cannot work with the jinn in that system. Okay, so knowing this, you would have to go into the actual studies of Arabic magic to even get into learning to work with the jinn on their own level, their own practices. Now, if you go back into the old school methods, a circle is a circle. Okay, a lot of pagans and Wiccans will call it a circle of protection in today's world, when in reality, it was a circle of empowerment, because the circle went with the triangle of evocation. Okay, the triangle of evocation is where you're summoning that spirit forth. So if you're working with demons, that's how you're calling them forth from the Goetic practices. Okay. But when you get into jinn magic, you're working with a whole different diaphragm, a whole nother planogram, if you will. So you're going to have to learn the writing, you have to learn the language, you have to learn the system of magic to be able to call forth the jinn. Okay, and the jinn can be either good or evil, but they bring forth lessons that you can learn. Okay, much like the Devi in Hinduism. So I would recommend, yeah, you can have more than one patron or patroness. You can work with numerous from the same system. Just don't interweave them with other systems. Okay, that's what I would recommend. Okay, but yeah, my professional opinion, and I'm just going by my own experiences, is you can work with more than one patron and patroness at a time. Okay, just make sure to keep a journal together so you can actually keep things going. You want to keep pushing forward. One thing I can say, for an example, is if you're working with, like, say, necromantic rites and rituals, I would work with seer, murmur, bifrin, and those three alone can teach you many, many things, but different aspects of necromancy. So basically, by working with one, you're learning certain rites and rituals. You work with the next one, you're working with a different set of rites and rituals, and you're furthering that knowledge into necromancy and spiritual communions. Okay. And then when you finally get into working with seer, well, guess what? Now you're working into mediumship. And it's not separated into different categories like modern practitioners will lead you to believe. Mediumship is mediumship. Okay. You could you can master certain elements of it, different aspects such as telekinesis, you know becoming empathic, maybe becoming a sensitive to where you're able to speak and see spirits. You can learn these things, you can open these gates, these portals in your own mind. But again, you're going to have to learn the kundalini, you're going to have to learn the meridians, and you're going to have to learn the elements and how they apply to, say, for example, the metals, the planetary settings, astronomy, numerology, all that stuff to get into these rites. But you can work with more than one spirit. That's hands down. And you're welcome. So, wow, time flies when you're having fun. I've been on here for over an hour now. Whew. Fun, fun, fun. So, yeah. So, just keep that in mind. And like I said, keep a journal, keep a grimoire handy. I'd recommend a dream journal, a regular journal, and a grimoire. Now, the dream journal is for anything that should unfold while you're in slumber. Okay. So if you've done a ritual, I would write in your main journal saying, this is what the ritual was, this is what I did, um, this is what I thought went well, this is what didn't go well. This is what the spirits told me, this is what I felt while communing with these spirits. you know but then, when you're sleeping, all of a sudden that could be when that spirit actually comes forth and shows you something. Okay. I've had, for an example, I've actually had gone in and done rituals where I've done the chanting, I've done the mantras, I put the work in, I had everything set up, and I thought it went well. I got that sense that it went well, but I didn't see or hear a spirit. Later on, when I was in when I was sleeping, I started having these weird, vivid dreams, and and next thing I know, it actually came to fruition. So that's why you keep three different journals. You keep two journals in a grimoire because you can actually write the grimoire, the ritual and the rite down, so that you actually have a method, a formula that actually works. And one thing I will tell you is that as you grow and you mature in your path and your root workings, you're going to be defining and redefining those rites until you find a perfect 100% ritual formula that will work every single time. Okay. Now, a lot of times it doesn't have to be this over flamboyant rite in ritual. You get online, people are showing their altars with this big ass fucking altar room with, like, say, 150 candles, or, you know, how should I say this? A treasure trove of relics. Most of the time, all you need is two candles, a scrying mirror, an athame, a skull. The rest is just symbolatry. That's it. Your altar really doesn't need that much. That's what I've learned. But not everybody is like me, and I'm not like most people. It's taken me many years to get my temple and my altar to where it is today. I'm not, by a long shot, you know, what I would call an expert. I mean, yeah, I'm a magi, I'm a, blood mage, or whatever you want to call it, a necromancer. But I don't see myself better than anybody else. We're all students. We're all learning. Because some of us just have a greater understanding than others. That's why when we bring something to the table, the only stupid question is the one that's not asked. Baron Samedi, the lower of the dead, the Radha spirit. Amazing. If you want to get into working with Baron Samedi, I would recommend getting into some Petro spirits as well, like Keflu or Simbi. Okay, they could actually help you out a lot. And when you're working with Keflu, think of Keflu as the Petro spirit of the gateways. You want to get into the underworld, you want to start working with the hells, work with the Petro. But keep in mind that if you do that, they will fuck up your life if you disrespect them. You have to have the proper understanding and ritual workings to be able to work with them. They're not for the faint of heart. They're not patient and understanding like the Radha. These spirits of the Petro aspects are, how should I say this? Think of them like working with an angel versus a demon. Okay. Demons are compared to male violence entities, according to the JCI, the Judo Christian institutions. They're only there to destroy your life, to fuck it up, if you will. But angels are there as messengers and warriors, right? Okay. Well, working with the gods, the Radha would be considered to be the gods. Okay. Whereas the Gadi family of Loa would be classified as the angels, and the Petwo spirits would be classified as demons. Okay. Keflu. There's actually a couple of different spellings depending on what source you're going by for Keflu, but it's Kelfu for Keflu. Simbi is capital Simbi. Okay, or E. Like I said, it comes down to the spelling and the source. Baron Samedi is, you can work with Baron Samedi or Baroness Gambella as well. She's got a whole nother temperament than Baron Samedi. Baron Samedi is actually quite tame compared to her. But that's what I would recommend to you if you get into Haitian Voodoo. Haitian Voodoo is perhaps one of the more, I like Haitian Voodoo personally. And the reason for that is because of the fact it's more pure. It was forged out of out of combat and necessity of guerrilla warfare. Unlike Creole, New Orleans voodoo. It's a whole nother system of voodoo. And it's perhaps one of the closest to Nigerian, Malawi, and Ethiopian voodoo of Africa. Yes, they can. A lot of practitioners today, they will tell you you cannot be a part of this system because you're not black. If you're into Haitian voodoo, they won't say, they'll sit there and go, well, you're not Haitian, therefore we can't initiate you. You go down to New Orleans and they'll sit there and say, well, we have to initiate you. You can't be initiated by anything else outside of one of us who's already been initiated. Well, the truth be told, only the Loa can truly initiate you. They're the ones that reach out to you. If a spirit has a need for you and they tap you, which basically means they've called you forth to do work, guess what? You've been initiated. They have chosen you. For an example, a couple of years ago, I was studying necromancy within Slavic tradition. When I came across Slavic witchcraft, a book put forth by a not a well-known author, but she's basically a fifth or sixth degree family lineage, if you will. Sixth generation, I believe. I believe she said she was fifth. Was it fifth? Oh hell, I can't remember. I want to say she was either fifth or sixth generation um, witch through her family lineage, and she actually wrote this book, and it was actually very, very good, and it spoke to me personally, and it was called Black Magic. There was one that's called Black Magic, and the other one is Slavic witchcraft. Okay, both of these books by this one author is very, very insightful, so rich in knowledge, and she actually put forth that she actually practiced Haitian voodoo. Well, I practiced Haitian voodoo in the past, but I never got into it on a full time basis until this came about, and it was interesting because of the fact that when I started studying Slavic witchcraft, all of a sudden I had this African American person standing before me with a straw hat. And I went to my teachers, I went to my elders, and I said, "Hey, I saw this in a dream, and he spoke to me. This is what he said. This is what he put forth." And it turned out he had initiated me. He had tapped me to get back into Haitian voodoo. This led me not only back into Haitian voodoo, but it got me back into Santeria and Palo Mayombe and eventually into Brujeria practice. So, yes, you can be initiated by a spirit. In my opinion, that's the only true initiation that there is. And Simadi is actually spelled D-I, not H-I at the end, just to let you know. So, every spirit that you dedicate yourself to brings something to the table. If they accept you as an apprentice, well, guess what? You're their apprentice and they've already tapped you on the shoulder. You are initiated. I guess that's why they fear the Bokor, the Capilata, the Marimberos, because they don't go by tradition. Hell, even the Bruo is considered to be feared. So, but anyways, I've been on here long enough. Until next time, keep on learning, keep on growing. You welcome, Leo. Anytime, just reach out to me, Leo. Anytime you want. Okay? And if I have the answers, I'll definitely give them to you. If I don't, well, give me a few days and I'll delve into research and bring something to the table for you. It's one thing I like about myself is I'm an Aries. I love a good challenge. And I even told my boss that. So with that said, keep those horns up. Always back up what you preach with numerous sources. And most importantly, make yourself available to the public. All right. Have a good day. Good night, wherever you are in the world. I want to thank Leo for jumping on here with me. For those of you who have been liking the video, thank you. For those of you who have already become a follower of this channel, I want to say thank you. It means a lot. Make sure to hit the notification button if you want to be notified when I'm on next. Feel free to subscribe. It's on you. No one's going to really twist your arm here. So, all right. Have a good day. Good night. Till next time.